On today's episode of the AG Irrigation Collective, we're going to talk about the 2024 presidential election and what impact it may have on the irrigation industry. Stick around. Hi, I'm Wes Schaefer, your host for the AG Irrigation Collective. I appreciate you stopping in today. We're going to kind of go over a few things regarding this presidential election that's coming up. In fact, at the time of this recording, the election is less than 10 days away. It's creeping right up on us. One thing I like to focus on personally is not necessarily on my like or dislike for any one single candidate, but more about their policies and ideas that they bring to the table. And I think so long as we have trust in what their policies are, and that we really believe that they will head the direction that they tell us they're going to head in, I think it's more important to focus on the policy as opposed to the person and kind of get behind the policy. So there's an article in Irrigation Today, which is a publication put out by the Irrigation Association. And this article is written by Nathan Bowen, who is Advocacy and Public Affairs Vice President for the Irrigation Association. So that's where this article that I'm going to be referencing for the next little bit here comes from. He kind of goes into, what the impact on the agricultural irrigation industry may see regarding which presidential candidate and their policies are going to be into effect. And so as we get into this, on the first portion of this, it's a very short article, a one-page article that he's written within this catalog, and you can go look it up. Anyway, in the first portion of this, he states here, both candidates bring distinct approaches to agriculture policy, conservation, taxes, trade, and regulation, areas that significantly impact our sector, which is true. And so that's where I want to focus. And in his first little section, he kind of goes into a deal about Trump proposing to continue tax cuts from 2017. And Trump has proposed that he wants to reduce corporate tax rate from the 21% that it currently is down to a 15% tax cut, which will directly affect manufacturers and businesses. Allowing more capital investment and operational flexibility. I believe that's true, especially you bring taxes down, and I think employers are more prone to hire and have money to hire additional personnel and buy additional resources to help them grow their businesses when you do have those tax cuts. So I personally believe that tax cuts can actually help increase overall tax revenue by way of other methods, not just additional tax money. It goes into talking about Harris, the Democratic candidate, that she's proposing that the corporate tax rate be raised to 28%, generating revenue to fund infrastructure and social programs. This could mean higher tax obligations, but it may also open up opportunities for additional investment and sustainable agricultural programs and water management infrastructure. I think that can be true, offering that money. However, anytime there's a tax increase, we Americans in general, specifically the business owners sector of things, have become very good at figuring out how to lessen their tax burden anyway. And so does an increase actually solve that? I don't know. Maybe leave a comment, kind of let me know what you're thinking on that one. That's just one thought I've got on there. And as he goes into the next section under trade and tariffs, I know there's been some big discussion with Trump regarding his tariffs, and it says Trump has hinted at a return to aggressive tariff policies. Based on that, irrigation manufacturers may face higher input costs, especially for parts and equipment sourced internationally. And I think even our USA manufacturers, it's quite well known that all manufacturers are sourcing parts overseas and sourcing international parts and importing parts. Though each manufacturer may have a specific level higher or lower of those international use parts, I think it's pretty well known that they are pulling international parts. So that will cause an effect. Says here, Harris is not proposing new tariffs. plans to maintain many of the existing ones from the Biden administration, such as tariffs on steel, aluminum, and green energy products from China and Mexico. So anyway, that's that on Harris. The next section goes into some regulatory landscape. And under Trump, we might see a rollback of environmental regulations, particularly in areas like water quality and emissions. Personally, I think to deregulate and less oversight of government is not a bad thing. And so on that policy, we could see, lightening of some regulation. Under Harris administration, they want to push more aggressively for federal infrastructure investments, especially those that have benefits associated with conservation and climate change mitigation. For irrigation businesses, this could mean navigating new compliance measures, but also tapping into increased federal investments in water infrastructure and for water-efficient technologies. So, if you look at this article, it's quite a general article, quite a broad range of article. I don't think it necessarily targets one candidate over the other, or quite truthfully, even one idea over another. But like I said earlier in this podcast, one thing that I think it's good to focus on is the policies. We need to attack ideas and not people. We need to focus in on the actual proposed ideas that they're talking about, as opposed to looking at the person itself. It's going to be important. There are some big things coming up that could adversely and positively affect the irrigation business and industry, and I think it's good for us to keep a finger on the pulse of that. And in this podcast, I have no intentions of getting too deep into politics, but it is something that's important we need to keep our finger on the pulse of. So I like having a conversation. If you guys have interest in jumping in on the comment section, I'm thrilled to respond to those. Share this podcast around as we grow it here. We're gonna keep some information coming your way. This article, by the way, I have not done any additional research outside of this article. This article, all the information that I've just offered to you is straight off of this one-page article in Irrigation Today. So anyway, shoot me up in the comments. We'll see what we're up against there. Leave a comment. Please subscribe. Every Friday we'll be coming out with a new podcast, and we'll be able to publish that, and see you on down the road. Be profitable, my friends.